The image of the Wild West is fixed in our minds: a noble marshal, a ruthless outlaw, and justice that was rough but always swift and true. It's a story celebrated in film and literature, an epic of idealized figures bringing order out of chaos. But what if that whole story was a lie? The historical record tells a far more disturbing tale. The American frontier was not a proving ground for heroism, but a crucible of institutional failure, systemic corruption, and state-sanctioned cruelty. The government's authority was stretched to its absolute breaking point, and into that vacuum rushed personal bias, economic opportunism, and outright brutality. The law that emerged on the frontier didn't prevent violence. It often amplified it, institutionalized oppression, and served the profit motive rather than the public good. Today, we are going to expose the horrors hiding just beneath the surface of the cowboy myth, revealing the shocking facts that prove the American legal system was often a structural mechanism for maintaining lawlessness, corruption, and terror. We're going to look at 4 of the darkest truths about law and order in the Wild West. The executioner's bench, the arbitrary power of the hanging judge. The judicial system on the frontier was not about impartial due process. It was about the terrifying centralization of power in one man. Meet the notorious figure known as the hanging judge, Isaac C. Parker. For more than 2 decades in the late 19th century, Judge Parker served as the federal district court judge for the Western District of Arkansas. His authority extended over the vast, volatile expanse of Indian Territory. The sheer numbers of people who passed through his courtroom demonstrate the administrative horror of frontier justice. His court docketed over 13,000 criminal cases during his 21 years on the bench. That caseload made his court the most active criminal court in the entire federal system. When you face that kind of overwhelming demand, the judicial system simply cannot provide nuanced legal scrutiny or robust defense. It was forced to adopt a mass production model that prioritized rapid judgment and high conviction rates. This institutional pressure transformed the court from a mechanism dedicated to the protection of rights into a highly efficient execution pipeline. For the thousands of defendants who appeared before him, conviction was nearly inevitable, and the absence of legal safeguards meant the judiciary itself was a primary source of frontier horror. The court had structurally become a place where legal tyranny was a component of frontier administration. Justice for sale, law enforcement as a for-profit criminal enterprise. The collapse of order was accelerated by a perverse economic structure that financially incentivized corruption and crime among the very men tasked with enforcing the law. The government's contribution to public safety was, quite frankly, pathetic. For much of the 19th century, a U.S. Marshal received a base annual salary of just $200. Compelled by economic necessity, lawmen were forced to seek payment elsewhere, often earning up to $4,000 annually by relying on fees, a percentage of fines imposed on those they arrested, or the collection of bounties. This compensation structure created a profound conflict of interest. Lawmen were compensated like bounty hunters, not public servants. This problem was exacerbated by wealthy individuals and businesses who offered cash rewards for vigilante justice that far exceeded anything the government could offer. These rewards often stipulated that bounties could be claimed for bringing in bandits, dead or alive. As a result, officers often prioritized the recovery of stolen property over the apprehension of the criminals themselves, because recovering the property often guaranteed the highest personal reward. This entire system created a mercenary paradox. The government's failure to adequately fund public law enforcement forced lawmen to substitute public duty for private gain. The institutional horror here is that the people responsible for maintaining law and order were financially motivated to maintain a manageable level of crime. The actual eradication of crime would have eliminated their highest-paying source of income. The result? Law enforcement officials frequently used their badges to establish protection rackets or commit other crimes, effectively transforming the local police into an organized criminal enterprise. If you're enjoying this look behind the curtain of the Wild West myth, then don't ride off just yet. Give this video a like, and if you've got a story of lawlessness or corruption, comment it down below. We're always reading the comments and hearing your opinions, and we'd be honored if you'd subscribe to the channel before we ride on. The reign of the rope, the brutal normalcy of vigilante justice and lynching. In the Wild West, extrajudicial violence, specifically lynching, was not a fringe event. It was a common and terrifyingly accepted method of social control that often superseded official legal structures. The vigilantes often viewed extrajudicial execution not merely as a responsibility, but as their fundamental right. The severity of these actions often went far beyond a simple hanging. Consider the winter of 1862 in Nebraska Territory. Alleged horse thieves were executed with shocking brutality. One man was shot in the back. The other was held under the frozen waters of the Missouri River until he was completely gone. The casual acceptance of this horror is evidenced by the local paper, which reportedly turned the grim scene into a joke. The audacity of the mobs further exposes the profound legal vacuum. Vigilantes frequently seized alleged criminals directly from the custody of law officers and jails for immediate execution. The historical record shows multiple instances of men being removed from law officers or jails and then immediately lynched. The ability of vigilante groups to consistently seize victims from official custody suggests either profound police incapacity or, more chillingly, tacit or explicit state complicity. Law enforcement often tolerated or even encouraged mob action when the outcome aligned with the local power structures, most often for the control of property and ethnic populations. The law of the rope was not an outlaw system. It was an integrated, brutal mechanism of frontier social order. While lynchings targeted various ethnicities, the practice functioned primarily as racial terrorism. Victims included African Americans, Mexicans in the Southwest, and even European immigrants. The practice was used to enforce white supremacy and intimidate ethnic minorities. These horrific public displays, sometimes documented by professional photographers, solidified the lynching mob as an arm of communal terror. Private armies and public fear, the unchecked power of detective agencies. The deficiencies and corruption plaguing public law enforcement created a massive security gap. This void was quickly filled by powerful for-profit private policing agencies. Organizations like the Pinkerton National Detective Agency and the Rocky Mountain Detective Association were heavily leveraged by businesses and wealthy interests to enforce capital interests, often violently. The power wielded by these private armies became a source of intense public criticism due to their direct involvement in labor disputes. Pinkerton agents were routinely employed to actively disrupt labor and workers' union striking activities. They used weapons and force tactics to suppress organizing efforts, leading to the public perception of the agency as violently anti-labor. This historical development formalized the use of violence as a tool of class warfare. The public law enforcement structure, weakened by low pay and corruption, was incapable of dealing with significant conflicts such as large labor strikes. Corporations, in turn, purchased their own private police force, a paramilitary organization, to protect their assets and enforce their economic will, entirely bypassing the public justice system. The result was that law enforcement was transformed into an instrument of capital, dedicated solely to protecting property interests, which often resulted in severe violence directed against the working populace. The law, in this context, was effectively privatized, turning public fear into corporate profit. The romantic image of the noble marshal and the fair-minded judge is a powerful myth, but the horrifying truth is that the institutional failure of nascent state structures to deliver impartial justice was the real crime of the Wild West. The system was corrupted by profit, terrorized by vigilantes, and weaponized by the wealthy. The real, enduring terror of the Wild West was not the lone outlaw, but the official legal system that frequently empowered, encouraged, or failed to restrain the worst aspects of human nature. What fact do you find the most unsettling? The corruption of lawmen for profit, or the horrifying normalcy of vigilante mob justice? And what do you think was the single biggest reason the law failed on the frontier? Let us know in the comments below. Like this video if you learned something new, and be sure to subscribe for more authentic history. If you like this video, be sure to check out some more history we've covered. Make sure to click the video in the top left corner.